The Black Death was a devastating pandemic that struck 14th century Europe, resulting in the deaths of an estimated 60% of the population. This outbreak was caused by 3 variations of the plague: bubonic, septicemic, and pneumonic. If applied to today's global population, such a catastrophe would mean around 450 million people would perish. One of the most effective ways to avoid contracting the plague during this time was to avoid densely populated areas such as towns and cities. The pneumonic plague spread through airborne droplets, making crowded places breeding grounds for infection. Meanwhile, the bubonic plague was transmitted via flea bites from infected rats, which thrived in urban environments. As a result, people who avoided cities and large groups were better positioned to survive. In Milan, the leader at the time, Yahud, implemented a strict policy of sealing off houses with infected occupants. This extreme measure, though harsh, limited the spread of the disease by containing it within infected households. This isolation tactic resulted in a significantly lower mortality rate of 15% in Milan, the lowest of any major Italian city during the Black Death. Coming into contact with deceased plague victims could easily spread the disease. In Florence, mass burials led to the creation of large burial pits where bodies were layered with soil, resembling a gruesome version of lasagna. Those tasked with disposing of the dead, known as the bikini, often faced danger themselves from infection, yet their efforts helped keep the streets clear of the deceased. Pope Clement VI famously survived the plague by following doctors' advice to sit within a ring of fire to ward off the disease. The heat may have deterred plague-carrying rats and fleas, thereby protecting him. This anecdote illustrates the various creative measures people took to protect themselves during the pandemic. Doctors eventually adopted protective outfits, including leather masks, long overcoats, and hats. The masks featured long beaks filled with fragrant herbs, designed to protect against what they believed were disease-carrying foul odors. While this practice seems peculiar today, it offered protection from direct contact with infected individuals and carriers. Flagellants were religious zealots who practiced self-flagellation, believing that purging sins could avoid divine punishment. Despite their intentions, their gatherings and extensive travels often facilitated the spread of the plague. Restricting travel and trade, as well as limiting who could enter a city, helped contain the spread of the plague. Venice enforced a 30-day quarantine period for ships and people suspected of carrying the disease, which eventually evolved into the 40-day quarantine, quaranta in Italian. These measures, while effective, still did not completely prevent the spread of the plague. Cities with strict measures to combat the plague, such as sealing up homes, enforcing curfews and limiting trade, were more successful in curbing the spread of the disease. While the mortality rates remained high, these restrictions offered some level of protection. Individuals in better health had higher chances of surviving the plague. Those with weakened immune systems or poor health were more likely to succumb to the disease. Maintaining a healthy lifestyle through proper nutrition and exercise, even without modern medicine, increased one's resilience against the plague. The plague thrived in warmer climates and seasons, so regions with colder temperatures experienced a slower spread of the disease. Those living in or moving to colder areas had better chances of survival, although even remote regions eventually saw the plague's reach. Survivors of the Black Death faced significant social and economic changes. Labor shortages led to higher wages and improved opportunities for those who lived through the ordeal. This shift also resulted in greater bargaining power for workers and transformations in the social structure of society. Thanks for watching. If you found this informative, be sure to subscribe and like for more content on history and other fascinating topics. Let us know what you think in the comments.